At some point in your hosting journey, you will encounter a bad guest. It's kind of scary not knowing when that'll be and what it'll look like. So in this video, I want to share a few real-life bad guest encounters that I have personally had in the past 2 years, how I handled them, and my prevention strategies. The first story is the broken chair incident. So I got this message from a guest that said, "Hey, just FYI, this chair is broken. The leg fell off when an elderly parent sat on it." My first thought was, yikes, elderly folks falling from a chair, not a good thing. And this might just be my healthcare worker in the hospital kind of perspective. To that end, there is a customer service component of just messaging back and saying, "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry that this happened. Is she okay? And I'm happy to have someone come over and repair this as soon as possible. Or if you prefer, you can put the chair to the side and we can take care of it after you check out." And they were fine with the latter. It was totally cool. The guests were not really that upset. There's also the liability component to think through. Fortunately, this wasn't in play in this specific case, but it was one of the first things that was on my mind and something that I think you should prepare for. If it is the booking through Vrbo, Airbnb, Booking.com, this would have been covered through their $1 million host liability program. There are some exclusions, so I will link everything below so you can check it out, make sure you understand the fine print. Now, if this was a direct booking, then you would have to rely on your own short-term rental hosting / landlording insurance and your umbrella policy. A short-term rental insurance policy can be as simple as like a basic homeowner's insurance plus a short-term rental rider that covers you for when you do rent out a room or rent out a portion of the house or even the whole house for part of the year. And then an umbrella policy is kind of like it says, an umbrella coverage that covers personal liability for you in the event there is an exclusion from like the Airbnb policy where there is something that isn't covered or the claim amount is in excess of what would be covered under that $1 million. Then the umbrella insurance can kick in and take care of that difference. The second part to think through in this broken chair incident is the damages. Unfortunately, in this case, it didn't sound like the guests were the ones that broke the chair, and there's really no way for me to go back and figure out who broke the chair in the first place and how it got broken. And if we have to be really skeptical here, did they really just discover the chair being broken versus was there something that they did to the chair? I was actually telling my friend about it and she was like, "Sounds like hanky-panky." And I was like, I don't even want to think about that. But the point is, I'll never truly know, and there's no way for me to like inventory every single little thing every single time that there's a turnover. And so it's good to budget for absorbing things like this as a cost of doing business. My second story is the newbie guest who just kept demanding a lot of weird things and didn't know how to pay for them. I received a reservation request for like a long weekend and it starts on Friday. And the guest messages and says, "Hey, I'm just letting you know we're gonna be driving down on the East Coast and we'll get there around midnight." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, midnight, that sounds great. I mean, the door is already programmed and it should be fine. You can arrive whenever you want." And then I reread the message and I was like, wait, midnight? Did they mean like Friday morning? Like technically Friday midnight, but really it is Thursday night? That can't be. That's not a thing in a hotel, in a vacation rental. It's never a thing. You can't check in like 16 hours ahead of time. I kind of waffled on what to do, so I sent a clarifying message, and indeed, he means to check in 16 hours ahead of the 4 p.m. check-in time. And at that point, I had two options. A, I could change the reservation to reflect the correct dates. You put this in Airbnb, and it sends it back to the guest that you edited the reservation, and they have the opportunity to hit accept, and the cost of the reservation automatically adjusts to reflect that new range of dates. And honestly, this is what I should have done. The other option was that I do have an early check-in fee. This would be an extreme case of early checking in. And in my head, I was like, well, I could meet them halfway. This is a little cheaper than if they had to pay for the whole extra night. And so I was trying to like do them a favor and offer this thing of paying X number of dollars for an early check-in. I immediately regretted the decision because it's actually really cumbersome to explain that. I also got myself really frustrated by like trying to meet them halfway, but not having that effort be reciprocated. The second thing with these guests was that they showed up with pets, like unannounced. Our listing does allow pets, but there is an extra pet fee because it does take extra work to clean up and there's a little bit more wear and tear. And so in this case, I messaged him. I said, hey, I noticed you have a dog. Welcome. We do charge a pet fee. It's X number of dollars, and I will be editing your reservation to reflect that there is a pet. Please accept it when the reservation change comes through on your end. And he says, cool, no problem. That sounds great. The entire stay goes by and he neither confirms the pet change nor pays the extra early check-in fee. And I hate bugging people for money, especially right before they're about to leave a review. But in this case, it was a few $100s. I did want to follow up with him. So I sent a gentle reminder to again do these things. And the guy just says, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm new to Airbnb. My son is doing most of the messaging. I will get this squared away. And he didn't again. I tried to give him very exact directions of like, hey, go to your email and hit accept. Go to the resolution center in your app and do this. And it was so simple that like I actually struggled to make it not sound condescending in my explanation. Still didn't do it. Eventually I had to escalate this to get this covered under AirCover, which is Airbnb's protection policy thing for hosts. I waited all the way till day 13 to do this because guests have a 14-day window for leaving reviews. And I was so worried this guy was going to give me a bad review for following up. The Airbnb claim process itself was really smooth and they paid me right away. So that was good. The kicker is this guest messages me a whole week later saying, hey, I got a call from Airbnb and they're asking me for money. Do you know what this is about? And I was like, bro, I told you so many times. That's what I wanted to say. Of course I didn't say that. I was professional. I think the moral of this story is more on the prevention side. You will get people who are newer to the Airbnb platform, which is amazing. Like more and more people are using it, but there will be some struggles in them figuring out the platform and the rules and whatnot. I think the strategy is just to be very clear on all the rules. Like these are the check-in times and the checkout times, and if you have a pet, how much it is, and this is the capacity, and if you go over that capacity, it's X number of dollars. Having it all laid out obviously creates clear expectations, but it also allows you to charge people and to follow up with any broken rules or additional guests, like additional pets, and accurately name a price and have something to fall back on and say, hey, this is what it says in the listing. And I'm just following through with what I had said. I find that for me, at least, it makes me less likely to feel so apologetic for asking for something that I feel like I deserve, but I worry if I'm like springing it on somebody. Story number 3 is the break-in scare. Dun dun dun. But before I dive in, did you know that 90% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed? It is completely free. It will not mess up your algorithm, I promise you. Once you've seen one of my videos, and obviously you have because you've gotten to this point, my face will just keep showing up on your feed anyway, regardless if you subscribe or not. But if you do subscribe, especially if you click the subscribe button while you're watching this video, it helps out the video so tremendously. It's like a thumbs up, but on steroids. Anyway, a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed. All right, back to the break-in situation. This wasn't even a guest of mine. These two guys just showed up at the beach house by the door, and kind of serendipitously, I had my phone sitting on the table next to me, and I saw the Ring app light up, and I saw that the little preview thing had 2 people standing by the door, and I was like, huh. Weird, we're not expecting guests. Let's see what's going on. I open it and I see them just like pulling the handle, touching the door pad, like just looking around, looking in the windows. And so I pressed a little microphone button on the Ring app and I said, hey guys, can I help you? And they said, yeah, I'm here for my Airbnb. We're not expecting anyone. Would you mind checking your phone for your reservation, for the address? And they don't check their phone. They just said, yeah, it's this house. Bro, just give me an address or something. So I said, it looks like there must be some sort of misunderstanding here. I wonder if you booked a different house and they sent you the wrong address? I was really trying to sound professional and normal here, but inside I was kind of freaking out. I was thinking through all the bad possibilities, like are they trying to break in? Are they just testing if this house is vacant because they know this is a vacation rental house? Or did someone steal my photos, my address, and like put up a new listing pretending to be the host of this house and got a booking and sent these people here? So I kept asking these guys to tell me a little bit more. It's really suspicious because they didn't even come with bags. Like they were just straight up standing in the driveway, 2 guys, no luggage. They didn't really say anything else. They chatted with each other. I couldn't really hear it. and eventually they left. Needless to say, I reported that to the police, I reported it to Airbnb, nothing ever came of it, and maybe they truly were guests of another house down the street and they just went to the wrong address. But how come they have no bags? Like, something is still not adding up. The moral of this story is to absolutely have a security system and make sure to invest in multiple cameras if that's what you need to get all the angles of the different entry points. I know the multicam subscription costs more money, but for the peace of mind, it's totally worth it. The fourth story is a party. Without getting too lost into the definition of what is a gathering and what is a party, the idea is to avoid having these like super noisy, loud, nuisancey, bad parking, strangers coming all over the place kind of events be hosted at your house that disrupts your neighbor, disrupts the whole neighborhood, and causes damage to your property and beyond. The best strategy here is truly just prevention. So what this looks like for us is we try to minimize the kind of partiers that would look at our listing and want to book with us. We highlight the family friendliness of having baby gear, having like kids wagon, kids toys. We share that our house is on a quiet street, on a quiet neighborhood, and we do tell our guests that we have a noise monitor. We use the 1 by minute, and I'll link that below along with all the other things that I'm mentioning in the video. A person who is looking to book a house to throw a party is much less likely to pick my house just because of all the descriptive things I've already said. And so far, I would say that this strategy has worked pretty well. From a noise perspective, there has been a few times where our noise monitor would go off. Always somehow it is after I go to bed, but most of the time it's kind of a false alarm. Usually it's just a bunch of people who are hanging out in the living room and just talking a little too loudly after having a few drinks. The way I double check if this is actually a nuisance is I turn on the Ring camera, which is situated on the outside. I turn on the audio and try to listen for what the outside could hear. And if I can't hear anything, it's probably not that big of a deal. Now, from a damages perspective, overall, we've been pretty lucky. We have had a couple instances of small things being broken and sheets being stained. Like, there was one time these guests either like stole or like somehow broke the glass top of a side table. Like, I don't even know how you do that. To claim damages, if it's Verbo, it would be through this like optional insurance thing that you would have had guests opt into when they booked, and you would just claim it directly with the insurance company. For Airbnb, you go through their resolution center, which unfortunately goes straight to the guest first, which is always tricky because you want a good review from them, but there is a professional way of doing this. You can say, hey, my cleaner just went through the house and they found this, this, and that, and because of these damages, I'm going to charge you X dollars. Please let me know if you have questions. If you think about it, if they went to a hotel and like broke a whole side table, yeah, they probably would get charged for that. If the guest pays through the resolution, then that's that. If they don't, then it kind of escalates to Airbnb and their air cover policy, and usually I've had pretty good luck with Airbnb just paying me directly. So in the case of those permanently stained sheets, I just needed a picture of those sheets that are damaged, a receipt of how much I paid for them in the first place and how much it would be to replace them, and I sent all of that documentation to Airbnb. I don't always charge people for damages because sometimes it's just hard to figure out who broke the darts and who took the canopy off of the kid's wagon. Like, you won't know everything that broke every turn over, and some of the things you just kind of discover as you go along. And B, I think some of these things are just wear and tear. Like, dart tips eventually do kind of bend and get damaged, or pool Q-tips kind of have a wear and tear element to it and you would have to replace them. That's not really a thing that people do on purpose. So I mostly focus on like really egregious errors that people make or things that are completely reckless and intentional. And then last but not least is the TP thief. This is kind of a funny story, and this is way after that whole TP shortage thing in the pandemic. Do you guys remember that? This was in the tiny house in our backyard, and there was this guest that checked in just for a night, and they were saying, hey, we are running low on TP, can you send some more? And I was thinking, well, that's weird. I thought I restocked it just not that long ago. There should be a bunch, but you know what, whatever. We'll send over a few more rolls. What's the big deal? When they checked out the next day, all 3 rolls that we sent over were gone, plus like the one that was like installed onto the oh my god, what's it called? Toilet paper holder? That one's like down to the last square. Like they must have unrolled the thing to take the toilet paper. So either they're like trying to get the most amount of free TP, like people snagging little bottles at a hotel room, or they had some massive GI issues. No judgment. Obviously not the end of the world, but I guess the moral of the story is that people are just weird sometimes. And I guess on a more serious note, how do you manage inventory? How do you make sure people aren't stealing things, like something more valuable than TP, for example? For like a room in your house or for like a backyard ADU like what we had, we would probably be okay doing a better inventory control in person, like only stocking what we need and keeping everything in the main house. And for something that's bigger and quite remote, like the beach house that we have, what we've done is lock everything behind pantry doors, and our cleaners are the ones in charge of replacing stuff. Who knows, there might still be people stealing TP, but at least it's not happening as often, or at least based on how much we're restocking, I don't think it's quite as big of an issue. Or maybe I just don't know, and honestly, sometimes ignorance truly is just bliss. If all of these stories sound like it's way too much hassle, I feel you. You do sign up for some of these surprises and you kind of have no control what will happen and when. All you can do is put in place some measures that help prevent these scenarios from happening in the first place. I will say the overwhelming majority of guests are really nice, and a lot of times I don't even hear anything from them. I also think if this is the range of bad guests I've had in like 2 years, that's not all that bad, and I hope this gives you some perspective if you're looking into hosting, what you might expect. If you're interested in hosting on Airbnb, use the link below so that we can both get a cash bonus. And if you want to learn more about setting expectations and communicating with guests so that you have a good experience and they also have a 5-star experience, watch this video next where I break down my tips and share how to get 5-star reviews consistently.